It's going to be a busy next 24 hours here, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That way when trades start flying in, you can get a full breakdown and analysis of it. Plus, we are so close to our goal of 39,000 subscribers, so hop aboard the channel today if you have not already. We've all heard it a million times, but Za'Darius Smith, you are going to be a Detroit Lion. I mean, it wasn't even the fourth quarter, and I've got Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk tweeting out that a Za'Darius Smith trade to Detroit is currently expected to happen tonight or tomorrow. Some people thought that he might get traded like at halftime. That's how bad it was. It was a, potential season turnaround game against the Chargers. I never really bought into that. I always thought that the Browns should not have let one game against the Chargers completely cloud their judgment over the previous 8 weeks of the season. So I'm somewhat relieved, as backwards as that sounds, that with a loss, the Browns don't try and kid themselves about being real playoff contenders and buy a bunch of fool's gold because they won 2 games before the trade deadline, despite losing 6 games before that. But in my eyes, Za'Darius Smith is a goner. I mean, I'm happy for him. I look forward to him having success, hopefully, in Detroit and getting them far in the playoffs and getting a playoff sack, because my guess is a trade with the Lions will probably be a conditional draft pick, and it may revolve around some level of playoff success for the Lions. But yeah, Za'Darius Smith, you are a Detroit Lion. You already know that. He left the game yesterday left the locker room yesterday after the game and did not speak to the media, and it was pretty clear from everyone in the room that 99 just played his last game for the Cleveland Browns. And I don't want to say I called it, but man, on October 16th, 2.5 weeks ago, we talked about Za'Darius Smith going to the Lions. So this is no surprise to anyone who watches the channel frequently. So make sure you are subscribed. That way you can kind of stay ahead of the curve when it comes to things like this. But Smith so far this year, 5 sacks in 9 games. That's going to be one of the most enticing and realistic, affordable pass rushers at the trade deadline. The reason why I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as Mike Florio thought it would is the Browns have the prettiest girl at the ball. I mean, pass rushers go more than any other position at the trade deadline year after year. And the Browns, when it comes to actual realistic, affordable pass rushers, because Garrett and Max Crosby aren't getting dealt, I'd say Za'Darius Smith is the best of the bunch. So they should not be in a rush to get a trade done. They should let the offers come in. They should try and create a bidding war between teams. But ultimately, I think the Lions are going to be the most, not just desperate, but aggressive team to get a trade done, with losing Aiden Hutchinson, but still being an extremely contending, powerful team in the NFC after whomping the Packers on the road yesterday. So my gut tells me it's going to be a 4th-round pick. It could be a conditional 4th-round pick, where it might be like a 5th rounder that could elevate to a 4th. If the Browns really work the phones and get some competitive offers in, they could make it a conditional 4th-round pick that turns into a 3rd-round draft pick. Now, here's how I think here's what I have down for the Browns 2025 draft picks. You go to a couple different sites, you're going to get a different array of draft capital, because some of those trades are really hard to track, like the Dustin Hopkins trade, Darius Smith trade, which picks do they use going to what teams and whatnot. But by my count, they've got 1st, 2nd, 2/3, a 4th, and 3 6. I've seen some places give them a 7th-round draft pick, but I thought they traded their 7th-round draft pick away for the Amari Cooper deal, or one other trade. I don't remember which one it was. But regardless, this gives you a rough snapshot as to what the Browns are working with and why they should add more picks to their arsenal, because at 2 and 7, you're not going anywhere this year. So with that being said, here are 8 no-brainer trades, meaning these are players that if the Browns get a phone call on, they should have no reservations about trading. They are all either on an expiring deal, 30-plus years old, or just frankly not very good. And I think we can all tell which player I'm talking about with that. But of these 8 guys, like take Jordan Akins, for example, if there's a team looking for a tight end, no brainer. He's on an expiring contract. This team's not going anywhere. Why not take a 6th or 7th-round pick? Jed Wills, if anyone's willing to call and ask for him, you say yes. Also on an expiring deal, DeJuan Jones has looked good at left tackle in back-to-back games. That era is coming to an end. Wyatt Teller, I could bump to the next list we're going to look at here, but He's also getting up there in the age column, and I think it's probably good for the long-term benefit of this team to get Zach Zinter some more reps. I know it wasn't very good, but as a rookie, I'm willing to kind of roll with the growing pains. Za'Darius Smith we covered. Shelby Harris I'll talk about more in a moment. When Jefferson's healthy, get him on a contending team. Mo Hurst, another player that has played well and had some good flashes if a team's looking to add depth to their interior defensive line. And Rodney McLeod, a really valuable safety. He's got 2 touchdowns this year. I just saw the Titans lost their safety, but they're not going to add a safety. So if any team wants some safety depth or is banged up at that position going into the trade deadline, McLeod would be a very enticing trade target. But Shelby Harris, along with Za'Darius Smith, those are the 2 most no-brainers, in my opinion, because they are good players. They are well over the age of 30. And the Browns could use to kind of get some future money off their books because Za'Darius Smith is on a 2-year contract. But Harris showed yesterday why he is such a valuable player on this defense because he generates so much pressure from the interior. And where do quarterbacks hate getting pressure from the most? Right up the middle. So if I had to estimate what a Harris trade could look like, I don't think you're going to get much. He's 35 years old. He's a rotational defensive tackle. I'm not going to try and sell him off as some dominant pass rusher, but he's got really good pass rush upside. So how about the current leader in the NFC West, right? The Arizona Cardinals. 6th-round draft pick for Shelby Harris. I know everyone wants to get more, but we got to be realistic about these things. Look at some other trades that have gone down over the last couple of weeks and see what those players are going for, and then come down to earth a little bit. So Za'Darius Smith for a 4th-rounder, Shelby Harris for a 6th-rounder. That would give the Browns a boatload of 6th-round draft picks. They could use those picks in other trades to move up in the draft. It just gives Andrew Berry more currency, more monopoly money to try and better the roster. So should the Browns trade more than one player? In my eyes, Darius Smith is already gone. But on top of that, do you feel like they should enter a full-blown fire sale? Or, hey, 1-2 trades with Amari Cooper is good enough for me? Get in the comment section and let me know. While you are replying down below, I'm going to tell you guys really quickly about our terrific sponsor. That is Leaf Filter. Leaf Filter has been protecting gutters in Northeast Ohio for nearly 20 years. As the official gutter guard of the Cleveland Browns, Leaf Filter has a limited time offer for Browns fans. Up to 32% off your entire qualified purchase and 2 free official Browns jerseys at leaffilter.com/report. An investment in Leaf Filter is an investment engineered to protect your whole home. Clogged gutters aren't just a nuisance. They can cause extensive water damage, and do-it-yourself and store-bought solutions may be cheaper up front, but can cost you more in the long run. Schedule your free inspection now, and for a limited time, get up to 32% off your entire qualified purchase and 2 free Browns jerseys at leaffilter.com/report. That's a free inspection, up to 32% off, and 2 free Browns jerseys with a qualified purchase at leaffilter.com/report. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Offer valid on a first-come, first-served basis while supplies last. Full terms and conditions can be found at leaffilter.com/report. See representatives for warranty details. So the next list of names here is I need a good offer, meaning I'm not looking to trade these guys, but they are not on my untouchable list, which we'll look at the end. These are guys that you twist my arm enough and you give me a trade I can't say no to, and I'll probably say yes. Now, it is worth noting that these 4 players, David Njoku, Joel Bitonio, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Greg Newsome, all have pretty sizable dead cap hits in 2025, meaning even if they are not on the Browns, they are going to take up a good chunk of their salary cap space. So, yeah, you could maybe get a good draft pick for, say, Greg Newsome, maybe David Njoku, Bitonio, Tomlinson. But is it good enough to also offset having $20, $17, $13 million of your 2025 cap space devoted to a player that is not on your roster? The answer may be yes if it's a good enough pick, but that's what it has to be, a good enough draft pick. I'm not looking to trade these guys just to get something while also being stuck with a decent bill for their salary cap hit next season. So Bitonio is a player who I want to do right by. If a really good contending team calls and Bitonio's on board, then I'm on board. But as the longest tenured player on this team, I'm not in any sort of rush to trade him. But I also want to see Bitonio have some success as he kind of enters the twilight days of his career. Tomlinson is still playing at a very high level. I'm not really looking to trade Tomlinson. However, once again, if a really, really good offer comes in, I'd be hard-pressed to say no. So that leaves me with two guys that I'm more open to trading. First one being David Njoku. I don't want to trade away a core piece of this locker room, a leader on this team, but we also can't lie to ourselves anymore. This is a rebuilding mode for the Browns right now. So if a team comes in with a really good offer, I think you got to take it. I would only move Njoku for a day 2 draft pick, a second or a third rounder, which you're probably not going to get if I'm being honest with you guys. But that's because I'm going to put a really high asking price for a player I'm not looking to trade, but also having the acceptance of at 2 and 7, almost everyone should have a price to their name. And for Njoku, that price to me is a second or third round draft pick. Greg Newsome, on the other hand, he's not going to go for a second or third round pick. So I know we're all looking to get better, picks for him, but that's not happening. PFF has him ranked 93rd out of 107 qualifying corners. I thought he actually played pretty well against the Chargers, so maybe that drives up his price just a hair, but probably not going to make a sizable difference. You're likely not getting much for Newsome. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed had an incredible season last year for the Chiefs, and he went for a third-round draft pick. What do you think Newsome's going to go for, guys? I'm telling you, it's probably about a fifth or a sixth. So for a fifth or sixth, and what I still think is a good player, not an elite player, not an incredible player, but I still think Newsome is a good corner at a very valuable position for a $13 million dead cap hit. I mean, unless the team that you trade with agrees to take on that entire salary, which maybe they do. The Browns did that with Jerry Jeudy, but the Browns also had to eat a good amount of the Baker Mayfield cap hit just for the Panthers to take on his contract. So those numbers are somewhat flexible when you've got a fifth-year option like Newsome does. But for me, you're not going to get much for Greg Newsome, which is why I don't think they're probably going to trade him, because I don't think they're just going to trade him just for the sake of feeling him out. So one team that I could see making a trade for one of these four guys. What about the Washington Commanders? I mean, David Njoku for a third-round draft pick. I don't think the Commanders would give up a third for Njoku, but if they really want to maximize this year with Jaden Daniels, they're the front runners for the NFC East right now, and they feel like, hey, let's make a move to better our rookie quarterback this year. And look around the NFC, the best team is the Lions. They're missing Aiden Hutchinson, so if we can beat them in a shootout with an extra tight end because Zach Ertz is getting up there in the age column, they may feel like this is a really good window for them. Plus, it's not like it's going to be just a one-year rental with Njoku. He's going to be a valuable tight end for them in the future, and Ertz is not going to be there for them in the future. So if the Commanders call and offer a third-round draft pick for the Chief, I'm not going to enjoy seeing him go. But I do think it's probably a tough pill to swallow, and it's one of those moments where you go, this is a business, and it's not for the faint of heart. And if you can get a third-round draft pick and go into the draft with a first, a second, and 3 third-round picks, that's probably best long-term for this team rather than holding on to a 28-year-old tight end. So would you do this trade? A for accept, D for decline. I wouldn't do it for anything less than a third. I'm not sure if you'd even get anything like a third-round pick for Njoku. But for a third-round pick, if that really was an offer from the Commanders, I'd have to accept. I'd have to accept that. What's best for this team long-term is probably getting 5 picks in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. I don't think Njoku at this point of his career is probably going to be here when the Browns get back on track. Now, 5 players that are off limits. Nick Chubb. I don't think I need to add anything more to this. Nick Chubb is going to be a Cleveland Brown for life. No, thank you. Myles Garrett. I really don't feel like I need to explain this one, but I know some people feel like if you're going to be doing a rebuild, you might as well go all in with the rebuild. My pushback on this is there are levels to franchise players like Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was the first overall pick in the draft. Myles Garrett is the best player in Cleveland Browns franchise history. Myles Garrett is so valuable that whatever you get in return, it's not going to be nearly enough to try and replace him. Also, if you're trading Myles Garrett to a contending team and you're getting their first-round draft pick, do me a favor. Look up who was the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, 32nd overall pick in the last 3 to 4 drafts? And then ask yourself, how many of those guys do you even know? Because that's the first round pick you're going to get. So, would you rather have Myles Garrett or the 29th overall pick in a couple of seconds and thirds? I'd rather have Myles Garrett. He is off the table for me. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, you've got a really good young player at a position that, as a franchise, you have struggled to identify talent at really since DeQuell Jackson. So I'm keeping J-OK. Denzel Ward, similar speech I just gave for Garrett, but just not quite as emphatic. I mean, Denzel Ward, unfortunately, has been battling injuries for his entire career, but the cornerback position is top 4 in the NFL right now, and you've got a top 5 player at a top 4 position. To me, I just can't live without Denzel Ward on this team. And then the 5th guy here, I'm going to toss in Martin Emerson just because he is having a down year, but still a young player on a rookie contract that we've seen incredible play from his first 2 years. I'm not going to throw in the towel after a tough first half of the season. So these 5 guys are just simply off the table for me. If a phone calls come in and they say one of these names, I'm hanging up. Before we sign off, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. On yesterday's watch party, there was a really cool moment that some of you might have missed during the tailgate portion of the show. And that was viewer Anthony sent in a super chat saying, I got 2 last-minute tickets for the game. Who wants them? Section 313 Club, Go Browns. And we were able to make a little bit of matchmaker and get Christopher those tickets, and he got to go to the game. I mean, 30 minutes before kickoff, Chris is probably on his couch getting ready to watch, and then all of a sudden, he is at what's going to be a very, very depressing game. But still, pretty cool for Chris to go and snag some free tickets. So, Anthony, thank you so much for your generosity and your support of the channel. I mean, big dog bowls for you, my guy. Before we go, though, I do want to give some shout-outs here to the Brown and Orange Club. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of the channel throughout what's been a very, let's be honest, miserable season. But, hey, it is awesome to see the same names and faces every single Sunday in our watch party. So, appreciate you guys for going above and beyond to support us. And if you want to get added to the club, $50 super chat during our next watch party, which will be 2 weeks from today against the Saints team that just fired their head coach, which I just realized is really bad for the Browns because they're definitely going to get the interim head coach boost. I mean, it's just a fact. If you fire your coach, your interim head coach wins the next game. The Browns just lost. I'm just realizing that right now. They couldn't have waited 1 more week. They would have beat Dennis Allen. They're not going to beat the interim, who's, by the way, is like Rizzy. We're playing the Rizzler. We're fucked. All right. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Follow us on Instagram, Browns Report IG. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you in a few hours when a Za'Darius Smith trade goes down.